Mr. Halderson's being sentenced to life in prison today. This hearing is about whether he's ever going to be granted parole or eligible for parole, excuse me. And that's a challenging decision for everyone to make. And I'll let you know that I have not entered this process in thinking about what the state's recommendation should be, with that being a foregone conclusion. Luckily, the law tells me what I'm supposed to think about when I'm considering what the executive branch of government is going to represent as its opinion in this case. It tells me that I should consider the gravity of the offense, the need to protect the public, and the rehabilitative needs of Mr. Halderson, amongst other factors, mitigating factors and things of that sort. But those are the three that generally are focused upon. They're called the galleon factors here in Wisconsin. That's supposed to guide us in our thought process. And I'll walk through those and my thought process in making my recommendation. I'll start with the rehabilitative needs of Mr. Halderson. I have no idea what they are. Mr. Halderson has an absolute right to not participate in these proceedings, and he is not being sentenced today. And I'm not asking you to sentence him based on his non-participation in either the PSI or at trial. Of course, those are his constitutional rights, or even today. That being said, as Ms. Raymond said, almost always in a sentencing hearing for a homicide or even lesser crimes, we have some understanding as players in the criminal justice system of the underlying causes of someone's problems, the root causes. Frequently, it's substance abuse. Frequently, it's mental illness. Frequently, it's inability to control anger and other behavioral problems that have manifested themselves throughout someone's life. You probably are wondering, and I'll tell you, it's been thoroughly investigated of whether there were any red flags that anyone missed. Was Mr. Halderson engaged in bad behavior as a youth? Was he harming animals? Was he harming people? None of that is true that we can tell. He seemed to be a pretty normal kid with a pretty normal life who did a pretty abnormal thing as he turned 23. You don't know what his rehabilitative needs are, and that's a challenge. The reason we focus on that is this idea in the criminal justice system that we can rehabilitate almost everyone. And I'll say, I think that to be true. I really do. The vast majority of people who are charged with this crime of first-degree intentional homicide, as grievous as it might be and as difficult as it might be sometimes for the victims to hear it, they are people who can be rehabilitated, that we can address that root underlying cause of mental illness or substance abuse, and they can emerge from the state prison system, perhaps not a perfect person, but a better person. And society can have some comfort, and we can all go to bed at night and sleep soundly knowing that we've done what we can to try to prevent some future harm from occurring because we've addressed that identifiable problem. You don't have that. And if you don't have that, I'm not sure how much you can consider that factor. And the law is very clear. When you're addressing the galleon factors, you don't have to weigh them up equally. You have to consider them all. But I would pose to the court that that's not a factor that you should ultimately consider a great deal, because I don't know what information the court could rely on in determining that there are some identifiable and fixable rehabilitative needs of Mr. Halderson. Next, the court has to consider the protection of the public, and here's where the court has to probably give a great weight to this factor. Mr. Halderson, by all accounts, chose to commit the crime of first-degree intentional homicide twice on a single day because he was caught lying about where he was working and going to school, or perhaps just where he was going to school. It was uncomfortable, probably, that he was caught. It probably wasn't an experience he was looking forward to in dealing with the repercussions of that. But those kind of inconveniences and uncomfortable situations are constantly present in life. Every one of us in this courtroom have dealt with bad situations in life. Every one of us have left work one day thinking, man, I really don't want to go home tonight because I did something and I'm going to have to talk about it. Every one of us here has probably walked into work one day thinking, boy, I don't really want to walk into my supervisor's office and got to talk about that. Life is full of inconveniences. Life is full of being uncomfortable. The difference between everyone else in this room and Mr. Halderson is all of us have owned up to that. All of us walked into those rooms, walked into our front door. All of us have addressed those situations, whether it be comfortable or uncomfortable, whether it lead to the loss of relationships or respect or money. We've all addressed them. You walk in, you take your lumps, you leave. But when faced with, in the grand scheme of things, a minor inconvenience in his life, Mr. Halderson chose to commit the crime of first-degree intentional homicide 2 times. and then over the course of several days chose to cut up those people's bodies and spread them around the state. Chose to lie to the police, concoct a bizarre story, lead his family down this road of believing that there was just some hope somewhere out there that Bart and Krista were alive, because he got caught in a minor inconvenience. I don't know how you protect the public from someone like that. I don't know how any of us would have any comfort in thinking that Mr. Halderson would ever be in a better place to make those decisions more wisely. It's even more compounded and perhaps aggravated in the legal sense by the fact that no one saw this coming. He is someone who was able to perhaps have this capability or perhaps have these thoughts in life and insert himself into relationships, social situations, his family, without anyone wondering, is this a safe person to be around? Sometimes in court for homicide sentencings, the guy next to us is a history a mile long of violent crime and is willing to talk about it, and you wonder when people are even around that person. It seems like a dangerous guy. Part of the risk of Chandler is he doesn't look like a dangerous guy. He's packaged up into like a normal middle-class kid and was able to fool everyone. Not only fool everyone about these crazy lies about work and school and activities, but fool everyone into believing that he was a safe person to be around, that he was trustworthy, that he wasn't going to, and not exaggerating the facts, shoot you in the back, because that's in fact what happened. Someone in Mr. Halderson's shoes with his mindset can never be safely in this community. His willingness to solve the minor inconveniences of life with brutal violence can never be mitigated in our community. As long as he breathes, he will be a risk. He will be a risk because he will suffer more minor inconveniences, as will we all. And lastly, the court has to consider the gravity of the offense. Ms. Raymond talked a good deal about that. Part of that is considering the people he hurt. Not only his parents, who by all accounts were loving and caring, but the community, their character as people. Gravity of the offense is sometimes called retribution in some systems, and I'll note that retribution is an appropriate thing to consider in law. At times, it's part of the gravity of the offense. But here there is no more grave offense. The crime of first-degree intentional homicide is as serious as it gets. Committing it twice is even more serious, and committing it against the people who are you're supposed to love the most is beyond comprehension for many in our community. There's an interesting quote as I prepared for today. I was looking at some cases, just trying to look into the mindset of other judges as they've considered these factors and the concept of punishment in the law. Justice Stewart, a while back in Furman versus Georgia, wrote, "The instinct for retribution is part of the nature of man, and channeling that instinct in the administration of criminal justice serves an important purpose in promoting the stability of a society governed by law." There was another case in the late 40s. It was Williams versus New York. Retribution is no longer the dominant objective of criminal law.